Hey everybody, I'm C. Andrew Nelson, founder of Aquatasy. When you're at the grocery store and you're going through the checkout stand, all your items have been rung up, there's a very important question you may need to answer, as the cashier turns to you and says, paper or plastic? Well, when you're looking for a new aquarium, there's also a very important question you may need to answer, and that's the topic of this video, glass or acrylic? Aquariums come in all shapes and sizes, but from a standpoint of building materials, there are basically only two types of aquariums sold commercially: glass tanks and acrylic tanks. Glass aquariums predate acrylic by more than 100 years. The first stable glass aquarium was set up by Robert Warrington in the mid-1840s. It was a 13-gallon tank that successfully housed goldfish, Vallisneria, and snails. By the late 1850s, glass aquaria became commonplace, at least in the homes of those that could afford them. Such tanks were constructed of glass panels in metal frames held in place by putty. Quite often, these tanks had slate or steel bottoms so that they could be heated from beneath by an open flame or hot coals. It wasn't until the 1960s that silicon sealer began to be used to construct aquariums, alleviating the need for metal frames. Although acrylic itself became a commercially available building material in 1933, sold under the name of plexiglass, it wasn't until the 1970s that acrylic aquariums hit the consumer marketplace. Both glass and acrylic have their advantages and disadvantages for aquarium use. Glass aquariums have become the industry standard, and for good reasons. Glass tanks are easier and less expensive to produce, thereby making them more affordably priced for consumers. The same size acrylic tank may cost you 2 or 3 times more to purchase than the glass version. Because they are cheaper to manufacture, glass aquariums are more readily available. Mass-produced glass tanks can be found for sale in many types of retail outlets, from your local fish store, to chain pet stores, to even places like Walmart. There's something to be said for standardization. With glass aquariums being produced in standard sizes, it's not at all difficult for fish hobbyists to purchase compatible accessories such as lids, hoods, lights, and stands, no matter the manufacturer of the tank. If we're setting up an underwater environment in order to admire the beauty of aquatic fauna and flora, we certainly don't want anything to mar or impede our view into that little submerged world we're creating. In other words, nobody wants a scratch on their aquarium. Glass is far more scratch resistant than acrylic. Generally speaking, a glass tank is easier to clean than an acrylic tank. There's less concern about scratching it up when scraping algae off the sides or when disturbing the substrate while using a gravel vac. Glass aquariums are not without their disadvantages. Glass is a far heavier substance than acrylic by a long shot. An empty 55-gallon glass tank might require 2 people to move into place, whereas the same-sized acrylic aquarium could conceivably be transported by 1 person. Glass is not only a poor conductor of heat, it's a poor maintainer of heat. Acrylic, on the other hand, does a much better job of keeping a warm tank warm. Something to consider if you live in a cold climate or if your heater goes on the fritz. Glass has a tendency to distort your view in a way that acrylic does not. Most glass also adds a slight greenish tint to everything. That's just the nature of the material. For most people, this goes unnoticed. But some folks want to see their fish, especially vibrant saltwater fish, in their true coloration. Drilling holes for bulkhead fittings is not impossible with glass aquariums, but it is a bit tricky as you risk damaging the glass. Although scratch resistant, glass is otherwise not very forgiving to impacts. When struck, it can crack or shatter. Usually the only way to repair a crack in a glass tank is to replace that entire panel and reseal the tank. As a building material for constructing aquariums, acrylic has several advantages over glass. Acrylic has the major advantage of being lightweight. You are less likely to strain yourself lifting and moving an acrylic tank. Although it is lightweight, acrylic is strong and durable, making it resistant to impacts. It takes quite a blow to crack or splinter an acrylic tank because the material has more give to it than glass and can absorb some of the force of an impact. Acrylic is a versatile material that can be shaped and molded into seemingly endless configurations. Although glass too can be shaped and used for bow front style aquariums, acrylic can be made into virtually any custom shape desired. Need to augment your acrylic tank with a hole for piping or fitting? No sweat. Acrylic can be drilled or cut without much fear of cracking. Piece of cake. If need be, an acrylic tank can be buffed and polished to remove scratches and imperfections. Cracks can also be repaired without the necessity of replacing entire panels, something that is usually not possible with glass. While acrylic aquariums have many strengths to recommend them, they aren't without their weaknesses. An acrylic tank is going to cost you more per gallon than a glass tank because of the labor involved in creating them. Seamless fronts with rounded edges and other special details take more time to make. Since they are considered a non-standard or specialty item, coupled with their higher price tag, acrylic aquariums may be harder to locate in retail stores. Oftentimes, they must be specially ordered, either through your local fish store or from an online seller. Accessories such as hoods and stands may need to be ordered to specifically fit acrylic aquariums, due to there being very little standardization from tank manufacturer to tank manufacturer. It doesn't take much to scratch the inside or outside of an acrylic tank. Even jewelry or zippers on clothing that brush up against an acrylic tank can cause scratches. And you'll need to be very careful when hardscaping your acrylic tanks so that you don't scratch the sides. Because they are so prone to scratches, you need to exercise caution when cleaning acrylic aquariums. The methods used for cleaning a glass aquarium might cause damage to an acrylic aquarium, so handle with care. When new, an acrylic tank offers nearly uncompromised clarity with which to view your fish. However, over time, the acrylic material can take on a yellowish hue. It can also become cloudy through years of exposure to elements, through scratching, and through neglect. Sometimes this clouding can be buffed out through polishing and refinishing. Glass and acrylic aquariums each have their place in this hobby. After weighing the advantages and disadvantages of each, your decision will come down to two main issues: aesthetics and logistics. Consider what looks best to you, but also keep in mind maintenance, care, and cost. What's my own personal opinion? When I was growing up, my grandfather was one of the first people I knew of to own an acrylic tank. This was in the early to mid-1970s. It was a beautiful 18-gallon tank with rounded edges in front. I loved that tank. It was quite the showpiece at the time. As beautiful as it was, though, it was a pain to clean without scratching. Since then, I've stayed away from acrylic tanks. To be honest, I'm a bit of a klutz. I don't trust myself not to scrape up an acrylic tank with rocks or driftwood when I'm aquascaping. I much prefer a glass aquarium, mostly for the easy maintenance and upkeep. I will say, though, that if you're looking to acquire a tank that is larger than 150 gallons, it might be better to select an acrylic aquarium. They're lighter weight and stronger, and, in my opinion, better suited for safely holding larger volumes of water and the pressure that comes from having that much water contained inside, pressing on all the sides of the tank. My personal favorite types of tanks, which are currently out of my price range, but are my favorites nonetheless, are the all-glass rimless tanks made by companies like Aquatasy or Mr. Aqua. These aquariums do without plastic rims or silicone sealer. Instead, the glass panels are fused together through heat. With no silicone around the edges or rims around the top, there's nothing to get in the way of the viewing of the aquascape or the inhabitants within. One day. Okay, what about you? Do you have a preference when it comes down to glass or acrylic tanks? And if so, how do you make your decision? Do you have a hard and fast rule where you always use one type of thing, like glass? I always use glass, or I always use acrylic. Or is it something that's based upon the type of fish that you want to keep? I'd love to hear about your comments, your experiences, your suggestions, all that sort of thing. So please leave a comment down below and let us know. If you like what you're seeing on this channel, I hope you'll consider subscribing. If you want to find out a little bit more about me as an actor and artist and visual effects type dude, you can go to my other channel, which is C. Andrew Nelson, or you can go to candrewNelson.com. Or if you want to find out a little bit about the business of visual effects and animation, which is what I do when I'm not acting and grocery shopping and that sort of thing, you can go to my other channel, which is Teaching Spot, or you can go to teachingspot.com. New videos on Thursdays, and until then, blessings to you.
Looking ahead through plexiglass brings a glimpse into a wonderful tomorrow. A tomorrow where this crystal clear plastic turns its amazing characteristics to beautifying the home.